Hi, everybody, and welcome to the monthly Rowe Real Estate Update. Today, we're going to go through some of the trends that are going on in the real estate market, and we'll look at both the national picture and the local picture. And by local, I mean the Chicago area. There's a lot of interesting things going on right now in the real estate market, and potentially some signs of a swing beginning to happen in the real estate market. So stick around and we'll go through it all and discuss it. First, let's talk about an article about mortgage activity. Now, this article comes from MarketWatch, and in this article, they discuss mortgage rates hitting levels that we haven't seen since the year 2000. And the article talks about buyer demand starting to dry up. The Mortgage Bankers Association says the purchasing index declined by 5.7% from last week, and it hit its lowest levels that they haven't seen since 1995. Now, this article talks about contract signings on homes in August, and that they had dropped 7.1% from the previous month. And these are the lowest levels we've seen since the year 2020. That also tied the lowest level that the National Association of Realtors hasn't seen since the year 2001. Really what both of these articles are saying is as rates have increased and they've gone up quite a bit, we're really starting to see that hit demand. Not surprising. Now, these are all certainly signals that indicate the market is slowing down, and it's starting to slow down quickly. So let's start with the data by taking a look at the boogeyman in the room, and that's mortgage rates. Rates have basically been on the rise since January. Now, keep that in mind because as I show you in a few graphs from now, or look at actual sales volume, you're going to see that sales have basically been declining while interest rates have been rising. As you can see in this graphic, the mortgage rate is well over 7% for a 30-year fixed mortgage. And those are the mortgages that are most prominent in the marketplace. So as those articles that we looked at a minute ago confirm, rates are really beginning to throw a wet blanket over the marketplace and really slow things down. So let's take a look at what these higher rates mean to you. If you were going to buy a median-priced home in Chicago, which is $37,000, and you put 20% down, which is a pretty typical amount to put down for a classic loan, your monthly payments today are going to be over $1,900. And that's just mortgage and interest. That doesn't include other fees you might pay like taxes or if you have PMI insurance. So I'm just talking about principal and interest. Now, a year ago, that would have been a little over $1,700. 2 years ago, that would have been about $1,150. So you can see that's a pretty dramatic increase in the last 2 years. Now, this doesn't count the fact that housing prices have been going up at the same time, which really just make things even worse. But I'm talking about if you had bought a $337,000 home 2 years ago, 1 year ago, and today, what that does to you. So you can see why that's impacting a lot of buyers and causing them to want to sit on the sidelines until either rates come down and or the price of homes comes down. So if you don't have to buy today, you're probably sitting on the sidelines if you can afford to take the time to do that. Now let's take a look at sales. Well, sales has continued to decline nationally, really as mortgage rates have continued to go up. You can see that the decline really started around January and has pretty much steadily declined all year. Year over year, we're down 15% nationally for single-family homes and condominiums. Now let's take a look at the local market. Now, locally, sales have actually bounced up the last few months, which is against the national trend. But year over year, sales is down 12% for single-family homes and 15% for condominiums and townhouses. But really, if you take a look at the local market in the last few months, it isn't giving a very good picture. So let's take a look at the next graph. Now, the next graph shows the last 3 years of sales. And as you can see, it's been steadily declining for the last 3 years. So again, if we look at the short term, we actually saw a blip up locally. But if you look at the last 3 years, the trend is still down in terms of total sales in the Chicago area. Just to give you a real sense of the last 3 years, in 2021, year to date, sales for single-family homes was 70,000 units. And this year, we're at under 50,000 units for the same period of time. And it's a similar story for condominiums and townhouses as well. So what's driving that decline? Well, it's a combination of a couple things, I think. It's a combination of prices of homes have steadily been rising the last few years, and in some cases pretty dramatically. And secondly, it's been the rising interest rates. So the combination of those two things is really making it much more difficult in a house being affordable for the average person. I also think it's worth taking a look at how that's impacted different price ranges. Now, a few months ago when we looked at this, it was interesting because the graph looked totally different, where high-end homes had declined the most in terms of sales. But now if you look at it, it's really impacting the lower priced homes. And I think the reason that is because the folks buying the lower priced homes are more impacted by the rate increases and the price of the homes being impacted. In other words, they don't have as much swing in their budget to be able to afford the increased costs. I think that makes sense, but I will have to see if that continues. And that is a shortage of inventory. Now, as you can see from this national graph of inventory, now what this is a graph of all available homes for sale across the country. Inventory is low. And although it's low, it has started to increase pretty steadily since January, which, as we've talked about before, coincidentally is when rates kind of began to continue to tick up. Now let's take a look at the local market. Now this graph shows that locally inventory continues to remain tight. However, like on the national picture, it's beginning to increase. And while the increases have been modest, they definitely look like they've turned the corner, and we've been pretty steadily starting to see a rise in inventory. Or if you compare that to the last few years, today, inventory is down 29% for single-family homes over where it was a year ago. And we're down 32% from where we were a year ago for condos and townhomes. Now that means inventory is going to continue to feel real tight if you're looking for a place. So while demand is down in terms of the number of transactions happening, because inventory is so low, it's kept prices pretty firm. And that's in spite of the rapidly rising interest rates. So let's spend a minute and talk about what this means to you. Well, if you're looking to buy a home, you're not going to have a lot to choose from. The other thing is you won't have a lot of bargaining power really with the seller, because there's a lack of inventory. So you're going to need on looking for a home over a longer period of time than you typically would expect. And also, if you find a home that you really like, you need to make a competitive offer. And again, I would reference looking at our video on how to make a compelling competitive offer in our video library on our YouTube channel. But you're going to have to be aggressive. So factor all that into your plan. Now, the next question to ask ourselves, is this going to change anytime soon? Well, one of the key things that would cause a change is a lot more listings to come on the market. If we take a look at this graph, this shows in the Chicago area how many new listings have come on to the market. Now, the good news is it's starting to increase. Now, it's just been starting to increase over the last 3 or 4 months. It hasn't been gigantic increases, but we're definitely, again, seeing inventory build. I don't see the number dramatically changing in the short run, but we're definitely starting to head the direction of more inventory going to become available at some point in time in the future. Okay, now let's take a look at the balance between supply and demand, basically. And that can be seen in a statistic called month supply of inventory. What we do here is we take the amount of homes being bought, the rate of those homes being bought, compared to how many homes are on the market. And basically it says if no new homes came on the market today, how long would it take the market to absorb the total homes that are out there? And that's called the month supply of inventory. Now, an increasing supply of inventory, of month supply of inventory, would mean the market's probably slowing down, and a decreasing amount of month supply of inventory would probably mean the market is picking up in terms of sales activity. And if we look at where the power has been, it's been in the hands of sellers for quite some time. The way to look at this statistic is there's a rule of thumb that says if the month supply of inventory is less than 3 months supply, the negotiating power is typically in the hands of the seller. A month supply of inventory between 3 and 6 months is a more neutral market where they both have about the equal amount of sway. And if you look at inventory, month supply of inventory greater than 6 months, it's probably more of a buyer's market. So let's take a look at where we stand right now. Now, on a national basis, as you can see from this graph, we're over 3 months supply of inventory for both single-family homes and condos and townhouses. And we've been that way for a few months. Now, it's a low end of that 3 to 6 months, which probably means if it's a great home, you're still going to have to make a competitive offer. We've at least moved out of the zone nationally where the power is absolutely in the hands of the seller. And we're sitting today for single-family homes nationally at 3.3 months of supply for single-family homes, and we're sitting at 3.5 months supply of homes for condos and townhouses. Now, as we talked about, real estate is a local market. As you can see from this graph, which shows the month supply of inventory for Chicago area, while the month supply of inventory has been rising, we're still in that under 3 month zone. We're at 1.9% for single-family homes. Now, that's up from a low of 1.6% in the spring. And condos and townhomes is really holding steady at about 1.8 months supply of inventory. And that was as low as 1.5 months supply of inventory in the spring. So you can definitely see the trends are in increasing inventories and decreasing sales, which is what those other graphs show. And the power is at least beginning to move into a more neutral zone as opposed to being strictly in the hands of the sellers. Now, as long as you see inventory under 3 months, I think you're going to see prices pretty much holding steady, even with rates increasing. So again, if you find something you like, you're going to have to make a competitive offer to get it. If you're selling a home right now, it's going to take you a little longer, as we'll see in a second, but you're probably going to get a pretty good price. And another way to look at how that lower inventory is going to impact price, homes in the Chicago area are going for approximately 99% on average of the list price. So there's not a lot of wiggle room in the price. That really still shows it's a very competitive market. Now, what does that inventory and month supply of inventory and the slowdown in sales mean for you if you're selling your home? Well, for that, let's take a look at average days on the market. Now, days on the market is creeping up, but it's not at a very high number yet. The single-family home number is 47. That's 47 days to sell your home. Now, that's up from last year of 38 days, which was pretty quick. And condos and townhomes in Chicago area is 47 days as well. Now, that's actually a slight decline from last year of 49 days. So you're definitely seeing time beginning to creep up. So what does that mean if you're selling your home? It's going to take you a little bit longer than it would have a year ago to sell your home, but it's still a reasonably short amount of time compared to historical numbers. Okay, now let's take a look at what all this is doing to the actual price of homes. From a national standpoint, we can see that the median housing price were up slightly month to month, and they're actually up 3.7% year over year. Now, condos and townhomes were down slightly month to month, but are up 6.2% year over year. Now let's take a look at the local market. Now in the local market, you can see the prices are down slightly month to month and down 0.5% year over year. Now for condos and townhomes, we were up slightly month over month and up over 5% year over year. So what this means is really, in spite of rates increasing and housing getting more expensive for those that have to take a loan out to buy a house, prices have held up, and it's really because inventory is so low. So think about it this way. If you got to buy a house, your family's expanding, you're getting married, you need a place to live, you had a change of job, so you need to buy a home, you're going to have to pay the going rate. And since there's so little to choose from, you're having to pay up for that. The problem with our inventory is the fact that most Americans are locked in at rates somewhere in the 5% is the statistic I've seen. And so that means they're not really incented to put their house on the market if they don't have to move. And again, people have to move if they have a change of job, an increase or decrease in their family, they're downsizing, they've lost their job, they're moving for a job, they're retiring. Those are the kind of things that they're getting a divorce. Those are the kind of things that cause people to have to move. But if you don't have to move and you're locked into an interest rate that's a couple of points below where you're at and you have little to choose from, there's not a lot of motivation for you to go out and look for a place. So I think you're going to see prices continue to hold as long as inventory stays down. And when we think in terms of where pricing is going, we have to look at interest rates, which doesn't appear that they're going to come down anytime soon. Inventory, which is starting to increase, but probably not enough to have a severe impact on the pricing. So again, I think the prices are going to hold in the near term until inventories build. Okay, I also think it's really important we take a look at the affordability of housing. And there's a number that allows us to do that, and it's called the Affordability Index. Now what this is, it takes the median salary of Americans, and it looks at the median housing price. And it's the relationship between those two. So a number over 100 means housing is pretty affordable. A number under 100 means it's a lot less affordable. Now, just for comparative purposes, the number that we had at the beginning of the COVID pandemic was about 170, which means that housing was pretty affordable. Why? Prices were reasonable, mortgage rates were cheap, and income was going up. So you had kind of a perfect storm to allow the real estate market to get really hot. Keep that in mind, that 170 number in mind. Now let's take a look at where affordability is today. If you look at the National Affordability Index, it's sitting at about 87, actually I think it's just under 88, so I think it's 87.8%. Now remember, that was 172 years ago. So you've seen a dramatic decrease in what people can afford, and you're taking a lot of people out of the housing market. Again, why you've seen the total number of transactions decline. Now let's take a look at where we are locally. We have seen the affordability index stabilizing over the last few months. For a single family home, we're at 83. And for condominiums and townhouses, we're at 104. But again, you've seen a steady decline in affordability, just like you've seen nationally for the last 6-8 months. This is going to keep a lot of people out of the market. And unless something changes, we're going to have a difficulty. So let's talk about the things that could change this index. And it's really a combination of any of the following: big increases in people's compensation, reductions in the prices of homes, and reductions in mortgage rates. One or multiple of those will improve the affordability index and bring people back into the market. But in the near term, I don't see that number changing dramatically with inflation high, prices holding steady, and inventory continuing to be down. I think you're going to see prices hold. Okay, so what does this all mean? Well, if you're a seller, it means you can still get a good price. It's going to take you a little longer to sell, and you don't have quite the bargaining power that you had 6 months ago, but you're still likely to get a good price, with the average price being 99% of list in the Chicago area. If you're a buyer, it means it's going to be slim pickings for inventory. It means that when you find something you like, you need to be prepared to put in a very competitive offer. Don't sit around and think about it, but you're going to have to move. And make sure you're ready when you submit that offer and that you're already pre-qualified. Otherwise, your offer is pretty much going to get tossed out the window. Okay, that's it for now. I'm Kevin Rowe. I'm part of the Rowe team. We've been serving the northwest suburbs in Lake County in Illinois for well over 30 years. We got a great team that could help you and answer any questions that you might have about buying or selling a home. Please, if you're in the market, give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to help you. Thanks so much.